Hello, everyone. Happy New Year to you. Eric Hörst here with the first Training Cafe of 2024. This is a gathering I try to have every couple of weeks, usually on a Monday around noon Eastern time. And during the live stream, I talk about a topic of the day and then take some of the viewer questions. So if you're tuning in for the first time or for the 76th time, please enjoy yourself. Feel free to type into the comments box a question, and I'll try to get to most of those questions a little bit later on. The show typically runs 30 to 40 minutes, though I can run long sometimes, but I try to keep it short and sweet and to the point. Packed with content, things that you can take action on and hopefully improve your training, your climbing, and just life in general, from some of the sage advice I try to share. After all, I've been doing this thing for a long time. I've been coaching climbing for 35 years, and I've been a climber for almost 50 years. So you see some gray hairs here. Unfortunately, that comes with the territory. So in any case, first things first, it is the Training Cafe, and if you're a regular viewer, you know what that means. That means we sip coffee together, or whatever your favorite midday beverage is. But for me, it's coffee until about 2 in the afternoon. So let's raise our cups, and in the spirit of climbing, let's drink together. Nothing like black coffee. I like my coffee flavored, nothing fancy added to it. And kind of old-fashioned in that way. So in any case, hopefully your year is off to a good start. And if you're in a northern area, it might be cold and wet or perhaps snowy, which is kind of the stuff we've been dealing with here in Pennsylvania. So I'm in full-on winter training mode. Kind of my day is 40 or 50-hour work week, and then I mix in quite a bit of training because I'm trying to maintain my fitness despite my advancing age, and enter the next climbing season, which for me will begin around, I don't know, late February, early March, whenever the warmer weather arrives, or I travel to a warmer location. That's the next time I'll touch real rock outdoors. So I'm in training mode, both here in my home gym and also traveling to the nearest really high quality gym is a little over an hour away in Philadelphia. Reach climbing is where I go once or twice a week to do some things that I can't do here in my home gym. And so the topic of this episode is to kind of give you 5 tips to maybe improve the quality of your training, maybe edit what you're doing a little bit to get better results. That should be something that every athlete, year over year is trying to do, is not just mindlessly do the same things they did last year for their sport to try to enhance performance, but to assess, what things you do in the name of training that aren't really contributing to improvement, and to add some new things into the mix, specifically things that address a known weakness or a goal that is upcoming. And so for me, I'm mainly a route climber. When I travel and climb outdoors, I'm usually on a rope. Sport climbing, a little bit of trad climbing from time to time. But my personal goal is to continue to try to climb some high-end routes despite my age. The beautiful thing of climbing is if you stay uninjured and motivated and healthy, take care of yourself, this is a sport that you can climb at a high level and continue to improve for decades. And I like to be evidence of that and hopefully inspire middle-aged climbers that you don't need to take a knee and just climb the easy stuff. You can still push hard regardless of your age if you stay healthy and motivated and training in smart ways to keep your body fit. And so for me personally, and I think for many of you, especially if you are a route climber like myself, tip number 1 for this winter training season would be to do more bouldering, working on your ability to do harder individual moves and sequences. If you spend all your time on a rope in the gym or at the crag, the nature of route climbing is that you're climbing a lot of sub-maximal moves, which tends to test endurance. And so as route climbers, we need a lot of route endurance, both aerobic and anaerobic. But at some point you get up against a wall when it comes to improving, where you need to be able to do some harder moves. And that's where I'm at. In the past couple of years, I've done a couple of 513C red points. And while they were endurance oriented, they both had crux boulders on them. Now, the crux boulders weren't that hard, maybe V6, at the most V7, but probably more like V6. But there was a lot of pumpy climbing on either side of them, and they were challenging routes for me to put together. But if I want to climb the next grade or two above, which I still dream of and believe I can do, I need to be able to do harder boulders on routes, harder moves on routes. And by getting stronger and more capable on hard moves, all those sub-maximal moves get easier and easier so that you get less pumped on your routes. And so there's a couple of reasons why being able to do harder moves can really help a route climber. And obviously, if you're just a boulder specialist, well, then you're up against that limit all the time. And you might need to actually work on some other things relating to endurance if you are exclusively a boulderer who works on limit moves. But from a route climber's perspective, from my perspective, I need to be able to do harder moves. So, when I go to the gym, these modern gyms have pretty high bouldering walls that, for me, with kind of achy back, achy knees, I'm kind of a bit fearful jumping off from really high. They feel like high balls to me, even though I have a big, thick pad underneath. I just find it hard to really push myself on a lot of these modern boulders in the gym. And so that is where I've discovered these system walls. And I'm kind of a Johnny-come-lately to the system training thing. But, I installed the Kilter app on my phone last year, never really used it at the gym. My sons have been encouraging me to use it. And so, this new year, I've already gotten in 2 Kilter board sessions. If you have the Kilter board app, my username is EHORST, so you can kind of go in and see what I've been working on. I'm still kind of getting accustomed to the holds, which I generally really, really like, and the style of Kilter boarding. It's obviously, if you've done kiltering or any system walling, it tends to be kind of these powerful moves, sometimes very body tensiony, which I need some of, but also Kilter board especially, things tend to be quite jumpy. And what the young climbers call board style. And so now for me, that's not Hörst or Eric style, let's say. My sons are quite good at it. I'm not. I'm more of a static endurance climber. And so it's challenging for me to get on even, a V4, V5 where I have to be more dynamic, more kind of jumpy, using momentum. It's at first, challenging for me to really embrace, but now after 2 sessions, I'm getting better at it. It's kind of fun. It's certainly stressful, can be on the finger tendons and the shoulders. So I noticed like late in my sessions when I'm getting fatigued, it's easy to kind of get addicted on a problem and you want to keep punching at it. But, if your fingers are starting to hurt or your shoulders are fatigued and you can't use good technique, keeping your shoulders engaged, all of a sudden the system wall could become the injury wall. So that's something that I'm trying to become self-aware of, and you, if you're a system waller, need to be aware of too. Warm up, get on there fresh, send a bunch of project some hard problems, some limit problems, but as you fatigue, dial things back. I try to, at least what I've done in my first few sessions, is kind of warm up on some V2, V3, V4s, which I can mostly flash. I flash about half of the V5s I get on. And then, I'll work a couple of things that are harder, V6, V7. I'm not sure, I don't think I've done a V8 yet on the Kilter board. I'm not sure I've tried a V8 yet. But the 6s and 7s usually take me a few tries to do. And then as I'm getting more fatigued, I kind of taper back down, kind of like a pyramid, where I finish off again with knocking off several, V4, V3, V2s. And I think both of my sessions, I ended up doing somewhere between 15 and 20 boulders, all totaled over the course of a couple of hours. Lots of rest in between the goes, except When I'm doing the easy things, the rest can be a little shorter. So I guess tip number one is download the Kilter board app and give it a go. If you have access to a Kilter board or some other system wall, it's quite enjoyable. I would limit yourself to 2 sessions a week because it is very powerful, max strength oriented. And especially for me as a route climber, I still need to put in my volume climbing, a couple of days a week as well to maintain the aerobic energy system. You don't want to stop training that during the winter if you're a route climber, because like a runner, you need to do base training year round. So I'm kind of doing a very polarized approach to training at this point. 2 days strength power oriented, 2 days more endurance oriented. Okay, tip number 2, and that is to do more mobility work and to find a way to do a little, small dose of it every morning and evening, if at all possible. And this is something I've only gotten into kind of in my old age as my body is stiffening up, which is part of the aging process. Your connective tissues and joints just become more creaky, achy, stiff. Advanced glycation end products get in the connective tissues, and you can't really fight this process of becoming, well, you can fight it, but you can't stop it. This process of getting kind of stiffer and less flexible, mobile as you get older. But you can kind of fight it a little bit. And so my practice is when I wake up in the morning, I get my cup of coffee, I go down into the basement, I do a little bit of foam rolling, a little bit of stretching of the legs, hips, and just a bit on the upper body, shoulders and such. I go into my little home climbing gym, do a few pull-ups, just a few exercises. I even do a few deadlifts, 135 pounds, I knock out 5 reps. I do this all in maybe 20 minutes to loosen up first with some mobility work, some stretching, some rolling, and then doing just a few lifts. It's not a workout, it's a wake up of the nervous system. And I commit 20 minutes every morning to doing that, and it really gets me on a good trajectory for the morning and midday for working like I'm doing now. And then, I can do my climbing workouts later on in the afternoon or evening, or sometimes there's 2 shorter climbing workouts rather than 1 longer workout. But that little wake up, warm up mobility session in the morning is a great thing for mind and body. And at the end of the day, as I'm winding down in the evening before bed, I do a little bit more foam rolling and stretching, no lifting, but foam rolling and stretching just to kind of loosen up and relax myself. So hopefully I can slip into sleep more easily. Okay, tip number 3. When it comes to your training, try to plan things out a week in advance. Have a game plan. I still use an old style paper calendar because that's just kind of how my brain is wired, and I can, kind of play out the week in advance in my mind in terms of my work commitments, when I have time to slot in the different meaningful workouts, whether it's a hangboard workout here at home or a Kilter board workout, which requires me to drive an hour to Philly, do the workout in an hour back. My endurance training, either on my tread wall here at home or, again, going to Philly and getting on a rope at Reach Climbing and doing some laps on some steep routes, climbing for volume. You got to plan that out in advance if it's going to happen. And if I'm trying to get 4 solid training days in per week, if you're like me, you have a busy life with work and family and such, you need to be a compulsive planner and then try to stick with the game plan. And then I backfill things like going for a run. I can kind of backfill that when I have some open time in the day, or I get home in the evening and 30 minutes before dinner, I'm going to go out for a jog before dinner time. Those less vital workouts, but things I still want to do, I might try to pencil them in, but sometimes you just have to kind of stick those in where you can. So again, plan your training at least a week in advance so that you can hit all the key points for sure and backfill some of the maybe lesser important but still desirable things to do when it comes to your training for climbing. Okay, number 4 is nutritionally oriented because, training is one side of the coin and nutrition and recovery is the other side of the coin. And again, as an older athlete, I have less wiggle room when it comes to nutrition. Your metabolism slows down, your hormones are declining. I need to do things every year better and better when it comes to training and nutrition. When you're in your teens and 20s, it's amazing. I reflect on how I could just eat anything I wanted and, be really fit. And not that younger athletes shouldn't pay attention to nutrition. They absolutely should. I'm just saying there's more forgiveness for eating things like junk food and consuming things like alcohol. And as you get older, there's less wiggle room on those things. And I need to be on point when it comes to diet and nutrition. So this fourth tip is to pick, think about your diet and nutritional practices throughout the course of a week, and try to identify, what are the one or two or three most damaging things that you do or you consume or drink. And for a lot of folks, alcohol is a big one because there's no upside to alcohol other than as a kind of a recreational, social / pleasure drug. And I enjoy a beer as much as anybody, especially after Ascend. But if you're consuming alcohol on a daily basis, it's just not a healthy practice. It's potentially cancer-causing long-term, but there's all other ill effects that it has. And for an athlete, it slows down muscle protein synthesis and recovery and dehydrates you. It's just not. There's no nutritional value to consuming alcohol on a regular, daily basis. And so for me, I am someone who off and on throughout the years would have a single beer or glass of wine many days of the week. And in the past few years, I've tried to dial that back again, just trying to be more on point with everything. And so I have a goal of 0 alcohol, but again, I'm not going to deny myself a glass of red wine with a nice meal, let's say, once a week, or Ascend beer, say, once a week. But in terms of the daily alcohol consumption, I'm done with that. And if I feel like I need to drink beer or want to drink beer, say with if my wife makes Mexican for dinner, I buy this Athletic Brewing near beer now, which it's kind of pricey, but I can enjoy an okay tasting beer with 0 alcohol. And so I have none of the downside, but still I enjoy that pairing of a beer with a Mexican meal. And so consider that if you're someone that is a regular beer drinker, could you maybe switch over to Athletic Brewing? I think it would be a massive step in the right direction. I've seen my body comp change by being able to remove alcohol. I seem to be sensitive to it in terms of it storing as fat. And sometimes it's not fat you can see. It could be, internal, like fatty liver, and which of course is not a healthy thing that you want to have heading into middle age or beyond. And when it comes to those damaging foods, obviously things like fast foods, those oils that are in fast foods are terrible for you. The caloric density is something that probably most climbers aren't keeping up with. Climbers don't burn energy calorie-wise the way marathon runners do. We're in a stop-and-go sport, especially if you're bouldering or climbing sport routes. You might work hard for a few seconds to a few minutes, but then you stand around and rest a long time. So we don't need 3, 4, 5, 6,000 calorie days. We can't burn those kind of calories unless you're a big wall climber or alpinist. Then you may, but for the typical gym climber, sport climber, boulderer, you're burning 2,000 or 3,000 calories a day on average. And so those calorie-dense foods can, really push you over the top when it comes to your body comp. And in a strength-to-weight ratio sport, that's something you should be thinking about and trying to optimize as best as you can, certainly heading into performance season. And the final thing is these highly processed foods, which I admit over the years I've consumed a lot of. Everything from cereals to, packaged foods, anything that has enriched flour or sugar as a first or second ingredient, or things that have high fructose corn syrup, they're all just generally terrible foods for people, but certainly for serious athletes as well. And so while a little bit of that type of stuff isn't going to be harmful, if that's a big part of your diet, and again, at times in my life it was, that is counterproductive, and going back to more whole foods is more healthy way to live, both in terms of performance and just long time health and wellness and longevity, which is something that you'll think about when you're my age, is things that you can do that will really help reduce cancer risk, reduce risk of illness, allow your immune system to perform highly for your age, and hopefully keep you healthy and fit for decades. And I'd love to live to 100 and try to climb as many of those years as I can as we move on. And then on to the fifth and final tip, and then I'll get to some of your training questions. And if you want to type something into the comments box, please do, and I'll answer them. But the fifth tip is to try to exert more discipline in your life. And that's kind of one of these more vague things. It's not a very specific tip to give. We could be more disciplined in our sleep habits, in our nutritional habits, in our training habits, getting to the gym and actually executing the schedule we planned for the week. But also when you're in the gym, being disciplined to know when to say when and call it quits. You feel an ache or a pain in a finger, elbow, shoulder. Do you just ignore it and push on, or do you kind of heed the messages that your body's giving you and dial things back, or just call it quits for the day? Because the ultimate bad investment when it comes to training is training and getting yourself injured. Tearing a pulley, getting elbow tendonitis, getting a shoulder injury. These are things that maybe if there's slight tweaks can resolve in a week or two. But if they become more chronic, finger pain, elbow pain, shoulder pain, that can lead you down a road where it could be months or years. I've worked with so many climbers that have unfortunately ended up there, needing surgery, needing a long time off of climbing for rehab. And that's the ultimate setback in your pursuit of higher level performance, is getting injured. So just trying to be more mindful of rest, of nutrition, of your training practices, just of your, even something like generally your thoughts throughout the day, trying to be more mindful of negative self-talk, talking yourself, down rather than trying to lift yourself up with positive self-talk. And I guess just year over year, it's New Year's, you're trying to be a better person across the board as best as you can in the new year is something that benefits us beyond climbing and benefits those around us. And so this all kind of speaks to, again, being more mindful and disciplined in our, just what we do from when we wake up in the morning to what we, when we fall asleep in the evening. I'll tell you, one of the things I'm blessed through my work to be able to do is spend a lot of time with incredible athletes and incredible people, dating back to around 1990, I had a climbing trip where I was lucky enough to share a hotel room with Todd Skinner for a few days, and we became good friends in the years to follow. I spent an incredible evening eating dinner with Wolfgang Gulick at Smith Rock, again back in 1989 or 1990, and he was the best climber in the world at that time. And today, all these years later, I spent a month this past autumn with Alex Megos. We shared a cabin together, and so when you're with somebody 24/7 almost for a month, you really see what a person's made of. You're not getting snapshots at the crag or at the gym of somebody. You're seeing who they are as a person. And Alex is an impressive individual when it comes to discipline. Boy, oh boy. It shouldn't be surprising that he's one of the very best climbers. You count on one hand. He's one of those top 5 climbers in the world, undoubtedly. Yes, he's physically blessed, and he's had great coaching, and he's got good sponsorship support as a pro, as he should, at age 30, trying to really push the lunatic fringe of sport climbing. But the discipline that he has, it's all from inside himself. No sponsors giving him that, no coaches giving him that. He has forged that, and to see him again on a day-to-day basis be so disciplined, waking up and while he sips his tea, going through an hour of yoga pretty much every morning without fail. And then on rest days, going for a run, even if it's raining outside, he will go out and run in the rain because that's part of his rest day ritual oftentimes. And, how he warms up and works routes at the crag and knows when to get on them and give them goes. And then, preparing meals is like a part-time job for Alex because he's a vegan, and he's, I think, probably one of the few vegans who's properly nourished because he puts so much time into preparing his meals and supplementing with protein to be sure he meets his protein goals, which are high. He needs it as an elite athlete training hard. His muscles, connective tissues, bones, joints need a lot of protein. Probably 100 grams a day. I didn't add it up, but that's probably about where he ends up most days. And it takes a lot of planning and a lot of discipline. And boy, oh boy, talk about someone who doesn't absorb any junk foods or alcohols or anything like that. He is, the king of discipline when it comes to those things, because I could be standing there eating a chocolate chip cookie for dessert in front of him, and he doesn't blink because it's not part of his program. And he has his own treats that he gives himself, some vegan dark chocolate and things like that. So it's not like he's denying himself of pleasure foods. He's just found what fits into his personal program, and then he executes it with incredible discipline. And so it's a beautiful thing. It's inspiring for me as a coach and an older climber. And I hope more climbers over the years, as they get to know Alex, see that and can maybe take some of that and apply it to their life. I think that's one of the great things about our sport is the access. Even if it's only briefly at the gym or crag, you get to, recreational climbers, other, climbers get to kind of rub elbows with these pros and observe them in close quarters. We're not separated by a stadium security like in most professional sports. And, it's a very unique sport that you can get some glimpses up close and in person of the pro climbers. And so, the best tend to be quite disciplined these days. So, okay, well, I'll wrap things up here. I've been talking for darn near half an hour. I don't see any questions typed in, so unless somebody has something here they're going to type in the next couple of minutes, I'll just give you some closing comments. I guess one thing is if you live in the United States, across the southern United States, perhaps we will cross paths late this winter or early spring. I'm planning a trip somewhere across the deep south, maybe from around Arkansas and Texas to Arizona, Vegas, perhaps Southern California, late February into March. Not exactly sure what the agenda is, but I'm going to hit some gyms along the way, I'm thinking about setting up some PhysiVantage taste testing at some gyms and also having a kind of train with Eric session that anybody at the gym can come and join me for maybe some kilter boarding together as I travel across the West. Or maybe I'll run into a few of you at the crags because we're going to certainly try to hopefully find some warmer weather that works for my cold fingers and be able to get some early season climbing in at some of those warmer southwestern U.S. crags. If you're in a snowy area, well then just get on a good gym climbing or home training schedule. plan things out, maybe put in a 6, 8, or 10-week training cycle, and just dream of the warmer conditions come the spring when the snow melts, and hopefully I'll cross paths with one of you at a northern crag, maybe at the Gunks or in New Hampshire or New River Gorge or Red River Gorge this spring once the warmer weather moves back to the north. And so I guess with that, I will sign off here. Coach Hörst and the Training Cafe is closing down for the day. Thank you for joining me. Share the Training Cafe with a friend or come armed with some questions for the next episode, which perhaps I'll try to do 2 weeks from today. Until then, be safe, be strong, climb on, dear friend.